better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you need a wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life.
I cannot wait to be done with this podcast, get it out of my brain, and never, ever think about it again. I'm pretty sure...
And that podcast is Dungeon Master of None.
That's right, we're quitting. I'm pretty sure that, like, nobody listened to this podcast except for probably us.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. But
Sure.
But unfortunately, we listened to it. And now, listeners, patrons, you have the privilege of hearing us talk about the 2024 audio fiction drama podcast Dungeon Masters, from writer and director David Kushner, starring John Hamm as William Deere and Will Wheaton as Gary Gygax himself.
Slash the Dungeon Master.
Also
now,
starring Felicia Day briefly
Day.
as some reporter and a bunch of other no-names.
Listen, Rob, if you wanted to make a real-life audio drama true crime about Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, would your first choice be a real case that about a kid who ended up, like, okay, yeah, content warning, suicide here, ended up, despite all the Strum and Drang, killing himself? Because this is a audio drama about the disappearance and eventual suicide of Dallas Egbert III.
Yeah, this is a totally bewildering choice. And, we got to tell you what it's about at the front. But, like, at the end, I want to talk about, because David Kushner has a little episode where he talks about why he chose this, and it doesn't help. It doesn't actually, like, improve my opinion of this choice. But this is an entirely bewildering choice. We have discussed the classic 80s movie starring Tom Hanks, Mazes and Monsters, which is, quite frankly, kind of in poor taste as it is, but that is at least a fictionalized...
Compared to this podcast, that made-for-TV movie is a masterpiece.
And yeah, it was already, like, again, not in great taste to make a movie about that, even fictionalized, but to adapt a true crime style, the actual events of the disappearance of James Dallas Egbert III in 1979 is one of the most baffling decisions I have ever... There's a lot that's baffling about this podcast, but, like, that on the face of it is one of them. That is something that I am still grappling with after listening to 6-7 whole episodes of this.
Yeah, I guess we should take a step back here. So, listeners, Rob and I listen to... Yes.
You come to a podcasting implement. Someone has placed a wand before you. Would you like to give background to the podcast that you were trying to review? Roll for efficacy.
Yes, okay. Let me add the sound effect of a die rolling. Oh, I got a 15. I guess that means
15.
I can...
Excellent. You do a very good job of providing context. Go.
So, the framing device Rob is referring to is the narration given to the Dungeon Masters audio drama podcast, which is an audio drama done by a podcast company that does a ton of audio dramas. And a lot of them, I guess, or some of them get made into TV shows. That kind of seems to be the point of this podcast drama company. But the one that we're talking about is one that takes the story of the disappearance of Dallas Egbert III and the William Deere, the sort of stupid private eye who gets a lot of news coverage back in the 80s, who investigated his disappearance, and it turns it into like a sort of like a Lifetime sort of just so audio drama. And yeah, that's what we're talking about. It's completely baffling from beginning to end.
Greetings, new player. adventurer, seeker of enlightenment, hero of this campaign. I am your dungeon master. Though thou cannot see or hear me, I am the master of your game. And your name is William Charles Deere.
Yeah, I think I'd first want to start with David Kushner clearly loves Dungeons and Dragons, yet he chose to fictionalize the sort of and try and reinvent the weirdest thing that has happened in Dungeons and Dragons history, which is this disappearance, which, if you don't remember, is one of the things that factored into the satanic panic about Dungeons and Dragons.
And if you'd like to hear the rest of this exclusive bonus content, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None.